good evening, good evening, good evening, and thank you for joining us with Get Into It with Taz. And there we
Hello,
go.
everybody.
Um, okay. Gonna start this one off with a bit of a doozy. Coming from the Associated Press, judge approves fix to stem race bias in NFL concussion deal. Black retired football players who were denied payments for dementia in the NFL's $1 billion concussion settlement can seek to be retested or have their claims rescored to eliminate racial bias in the testing and payout formula under a revised plan finalized Friday. Outrage over the use of race norming in the dementia testing, which assumed that Black people have a lower cognitive baseline score, making it harder for them to show mental declines linked to football, forced the NFL and players' lawyers back to the negotiating table last year. The revisions could allow many retired players to resubmit their claims and add $100 million or more to the NFL's legal tab. The NFL, through the fund, has paid out more than $800 million to date, nearly half are dementia claims. The dementia awards average about $600,000. Thousands of Black players stand to benefit from these changes to the settlement, said lawyer Cyril V. Smith, who represents former players Najee Davenport and Kevin Henry, whose 2020 race discrimination lawsuit brought the issue to light.
Yeah, they need to resolve this and make it fair. We've been hearing about this for a while now, and action needs to be done. Um,
And it's 2021.
yeah,
I can't put I can't put the entirety of the testing on the NFL because even at the big old year of 2022, there are still medical books that are brimming with racial bias,
hmm
stating that Black people don't feel as pain or as much pain, that our cognition levels are lower, all of these things. And it's like, come on, it is time to evolve. And my biggest issue is, hey, NFL, you know
hmm
the intricacies of the plays and what it takes to be able to play on that level.
hmm
Why did you let this pass? Why did you let this testing pass?
yeah, and this isn't for people that actually even had to have played for 10 years. I mean, these are players that in some cases didn't play that long, but it was a cumulative from college, from high school to college to pro, and as we saw when they were actually going through the whole concussion testing it and presenting it to the NFL, all these results that were coming from all these brain scans and all from these players that had either committed suicide or had done violent acts that resulted in death. Um, these were things that had been coming out, and my opinion was that the doctor that brought this information to the NFL was not of white complexion, and there were things that they just didn't want to face because money over anything that's going to affect that, and they they were raking in the money, and anything that they could do to, I guess, sugarcoat taking action, then that's the route they were going to go without trying to totally halt or alter the way they did business. This just keeps coming out. I mean, there's some real tragedy out there, and yes, there's like you were saying, yes, there's books and information that has been revealed as to how Black athletes were looked at for all these years, and were there any repercussions? And time has come. I mean, like you said, we're in 2022, and there needs to be action done. There needs to be action taken. There's families and loved ones out there that have lost their loved ones. Um, to something that these individuals couldn't control. Their body, their brain had turned on them, and it was for all those years of taking hits. And there's no doubt that color played a role in how they went about resolving this or taking action. They were very hesitant to take action for a long time because of their bottom line. Didn't want to be affected. So, when you're
Oh yeah,
dealing with the league that has all these old white men, you know,
and
it's
one thing that people need to know about the NFL, because a lot of people look at the NBA and base every other sport
oh yeah,
as the NBA. In the NFL, if you do not play, you do not get paid.
mm-hmm.
They can promise you all sorts of signing bonuses, but if anything happens and you cannot complete that season, you're not getting it. So when these gentlemen uh, started suffering the effects of dementia,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't just die as multimillionaires or
Mm-hmm.
multi-billionaires.
Yeah,
And also you have to take into the account how much it costs to take care of someone who has dementia. I had a grandparent who suffered from dementia. It starts to get hefty.
mm-hmm.
So, because I saw a few comments online where people think that this is a money grab. You cannot engage in such a physically requiring career
Mm-hmm.
and not be properly compensated.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody bats an eye that politicians on the federal level get health care free of charge for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't these NFL players at least have their medical bills taken care of? Because they would not have dementia if it wasn't for all the blows to the head.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, you can't compare this to other leagues. The toll it takes on a body in the NFL or on any level of football. I mean, even college. To compare that to basketball or baseball, soccer, anything else you want to compare it to. I mean, hockey, yes, they beat each other around, but it's not a replay that there's potential for some form of contact to the head or body area that could result in, like you said, lifelong, not just head trauma, but arthritis issues. I mean, there's so many issues that come after you're done with the game that these players and their families are having to deal with. And no, they're not all, sitting back in a mansion somewhere on a lake. They're out there, selling cars or opening, they're doing what they can to make ends meet. It's there's no guarantee of being a rich retired individual.
No, it's not like somebody from IBM or Apple or
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft was like, oh, I've been stricken with this disease. They're
Yeah.
not starting from wealthy families. You have to think athletes are not recruited from Beverly Hills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's
But moving on to our next one. Talked about the NFL. Time to move to an issue with the NBA. Here we go.
As the diplomatic ties between the U.S. and Russia crumble, a WNBA star is caught in the middle. Phoenix Mercury center Brittany Griner was arrested on drug charges after Russian customs officials said they found vape cartridges that contained
supposed to be carrying. Of course, whether that actually corresponds to the facts, we don't even know, and I wouldn't put anything beyond the authorities there. This is probably a propaganda trick.
Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who represents Griner's home city of Houston, calling for her release.
I don't want to disregard a sovereign nation, but Putin has disregarded sovereign nations his entire service in this world. And anyone that is killing and attacking and destroying Ukraine, their neighboring country that does not bother them, has no right to hold Miss Griner, period.
And Griner's wife, breaking her silence in an Instagram post thanking everyone for their support and writing, quote, "Please honor our privacy as we continue to work on getting my wife home safely." Back home in Houston, Griner's high school coach grew emotional, worried Griner could face severe consequences.
What's your biggest fear?
My biggest fear is that this will become that she'll be a political pawn.
If she by any chance watches this story, what would you tell her?
I would tell her, please know that you are loved by so many people. You've always had a true resolve and grit to get to the finish line, and know that you will get to the finish line of this trial you're going through, of this ordeal.
The WNBA telling CNN that all of the athletes that were competing in Russia and Ukraine have exited those countries except for Griner. The U.S. Department of State issuing a do not travel advisory for Russia, and the reasons listed are very telling. It, of course, includes Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but it also says that officials there, government officials, could harass U.S. citizens, that the U.S. government right now has limited ability to help U.S. citizens in Russia, and also that that U.S. citizens who are in Russia could see the arbitrary enforcement of the law there, Erica. And of course, right now, the focus for the friends and family of Brittany Griner is to return her to the United States.
Okay, so Russian authorities are claiming that Griner, age 31, had cannabis oil in her luggage while in a Moscow airport last month, and accused her of smuggling significant amounts of a narcotic substance, on an offense punishable by up to 10 years in prison. This is the third United States citizen to be detained in Russia since just before and during its invasion of Ukraine. Trevor Reed and Paul Whelan, Reed 30 and Whelan 52, were arrested and convicted separately for alleged crimes they've emphatically denied well before the Russian incursion of Ukraine, and the pair remain in prison serving extended sentences denounced by U.S. officials as unfair.
This is tragic.
And we don't have any bargaining chips,
No,
because he can't lax the sanctions.
Right. This is what they want. This is a, like her former coach was saying. This is the pawn that they wanted. She is a big name player. I'm just curious how this story would have been told had they detained, a Tom Brady or somebody of a certain stature. Griner is well known in the basketball community, but aside from our hands kind of being tied a bit with Russia doing what Russia wants to do, I'm curious where this is going to go, because this is tragic. They're not going to be so giving to be, try to show goodwill to everyone out there, knowing how the world has turned on Russia. This is just tragic.
And I know a lot of people were asking online, why was Brittany in Russia? At the time, she was traveling back to her team when she was detained.
Yeah.
So she wasn't just sitting there willy-nilly. And the
But
thing about
those WNBA athletes don't make enough where they can just play in the WNBA, and that's why a lot of them do play overseas on their off season here. This is another way to bring in income. So she wasn't there
there were
to.
a lot of competitions and exhibitions going on in Russia, in Ukraine, all over Europe. It
Right.
happens during the off season every year.
Right.
I gotta play devil's advocate here, though. Like I said, there are 3 Americans that are being detained. The one that's getting the most media attention, which for the first time in U.S. history, is the Black woman, because the 2 white men, I did not even know that they had been detained until doing research for this. But I must play devil's advocate. It is imperative, when there is a governmental warning regarding violence, whether it is to your person, whether you are or whether you are domestically or you are abroad, take heed. Get up out of Dodge. Too much during this war and other wars going on simultaneously, people are now crying because they can't get away when they had the means and they had the opportunity. I'm not talking about the people without the opportunity to leave and without the means to leave. That's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about these hard-headed Americans across the globe who are warned to get up and get gone and don't until shit gets real. Americans. Every place on the planet is not America. Every place on the planet is not going to let your caring antics save you. You cannot walk up to a warlord and ask to speak to the manager and poof, you're back in Saskatchewan.
Mhm. There's a lot of places that just don't like Americans. It doesn't matter if you were born in America or not. If you're coming there representing America in some form, they don't like you for what you represent over
Mhm.
here.
But for this question, Putin has been a sovereign nation since Gorbachev was president. What Trump did at the behest of Putin was remove funding from the Ukraine, if you recall, remove protections from the Ukraine, and Trump was trying to leverage the Ukraine to investigate Hillary Clinton
Hmm.
so that he could have a slam dunk in this past election. But Ukraine is its own nation. Nobody could give it up.
Yeah, right.
But it's just frustrating me watching all these people be detained or now they're stuck in places when it's like you had the means and opportunity to leave and now you're clogging up opportunities for those that are just now getting the means and opportunity to leave.
Yeah. Well, when you don't know when it's going to get real, that's when it's time to go because real could drop the next hour. Who knows?
Yeah, and
Um,
it's like we know that the United States does not care about its citizens. So in the event that they actually say, "Hey, heads up, take heed and move it along."
yeah.
Oh, and another question I saw popping up multiple times. Uh, well, why wasn't Brittany's family interviewed? Why her high school coach? First of all, once again, Americans, you're not entitled to everything in everybody's life. Two, these people are frantically trying to get their loved one out of a country that's trying to war with the world. They're not in the mindset to sit down and have a bunch of different interviews. They're trying to secure attorneys on the other side of the world where they can't go themselves out of fear that they will be detained as well. Like sometimes I need y'all to think outside of your need to be nosy.
Mhm.
Like there are other wars going on. I know y'all care about the one involving white people, but there's some where they're bombing black people. Go be nosy over there.
Mhm.
Let's see. Oops. I hate that this always closes out after you leave it. Okay. And from the AP, Falcons wide receiver Ridley suspended for 2022 for bets on NFL games. Somebody thought that somebody's hero is Pete Rose. For endangering the integrity of the sport by betting on games, Atlanta Falcons wide receiver Calvin Ridley has been suspended by the NFL for at least the next season. Ridley won't play in 2022, and there is no guarantee for the NFL future of the player who had been expected to be the Falcons' top target for quarterback Matt Ryan. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell on Monday suspended Ridley after a league investigation determined Ridley bet on NFL games in 2021 while away from the team addressing mental health concerns. The league says that the suspension will carry through at least the conclusion of the 2022 season. Who snitched on him? Because betting is not something that's like public and your name is attached to it. I'm not saying what he
There,
did was
there's
right.
there's always somebody who will talk your business.
Somebody said because he's off for mental health reasons, and
Now, granted, I don't fully believe he was going to be like they said the Falcons' supposed number one target in all this.
Yeah, I
He
don't.
had already had some question marks, not so much about his mental health, but just team stuff. However, I know he's trying to, at this point, backtrack on his involvement in gambling, as if people are turning him into, like you said, Pete Rose, and making him some, habitual gambler who this is a normal thing for him. And we don't know. I mean, he can tell us whatever he wants. We just don't know what he does with his money and his time on games, whether it's the NFL or some other sports. We don't know. We really don't. I mean, that's just hearsay. However, why you do it? Like, there are just some things that might just come back at you. And if you're just getting your feet wet in the league, I don't know that you'll want to put that spotlight, especially when you were the top one or two receiver on that team. I mean, you weren't a guy that was coming off the practice squad, so you are going to have more attention drawn to you in a city that in any city. Like I said, I don't know his history with gambling at all, so I can't really speak on how much this was a norm for him. But I just don't know where you go from this, because, like I said, there's things that weren't being negotiated. Gambling is not something that was being negotiated with Player Association or NFL. However, there's just things that they tell you in the intro and the onboarding of the NFL, of the do's and don'ts and the things you can and can't do. And those are just the rules. I mean, some things, whether you like it or not, these are what you got to follow. And you can risk your career if you don't follow them. They will rush you right out the door and put you on the curb if you don't follow certain rules. They don't care who you are. They will usher you out, and the next one will be in to take your place. So I don't know where they're going to go with this. It just depends on how much they want to make him a bigger example. That's always up in the air, because they did not say that this is only for the 2022 season. They did leave that door open. So we don't know, like I said, what kind of an example they'll want to use, because this is something new again, just like they do anytime something new comes up.
And more than likely, they'll look at MLB's handling of Pete Rose.
Yeah.
Because even though we understand it's an integrity issue,
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of people who I don't agree with them, because I think Pete Rose continuously bites himself in the foot every time he opens his mouth about it, who believe that the sanctions against him should be lifted so he can make it into Major League's Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So I think they're leaving it open to see, is there potential backlash? But it's like, he doesn't have the career that Pete Rose had, number one. So nobody's going to be fighting for anything to be lifted. Pete Rose got busted because Pete Rose was pretty out there with his gambling. Like Jerry Springer, when Jerry Springer got busted with the prostitute, because Jerry Springer wrote the prostitute a check that bounced while mayor of Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And now in this digital age,
and this is another Cincy. We got Springer from Cincy. We had Pete Rose in Cincy. What's in the water up there?
Nastiness. That's what it is. Nastiness. But in this digital age, I would say they're going to take the time to investigate who brought forth these allegations, whatever evidence was brought forth to confirm. Because let's not forget the Michael Vick situation, where this man is still being vilified to this day and spent time behind bars. But when you look at the court transcripts, he was charged and convicted with dogfighting, but he wasn't a part of the dogfighting ring. The dogfighting took place while he was on the road with his team.
Right.
NFL does not need another black eye.
Right. Now, in the Mike Vick situation, I was glad to see that he himself redeemed, and they were those that helped him redeem a career. Not the one he had, that was clearly interrupted, but he has been successful now as an analyst, as a somebody that will add commentary to the NFL, and they did let him back in that capacity when it came to the media. But then you have other things. Once again, going back to baseball, you had those that were also trying to shake off their past, like, you know, the Barry Bonds of the world with the steroids, and you had I had Mark McGwire and all these that dealt with the steroid era, where they claimed that, you know, well, everyone was doing it. We were just the ones that got caught. You know, now you wanted to crack down on it. You could have got 3/4 of the league out on this stuff. You know, well, you know, that's hearsay, but
very, very true.
I think in this case with Ridley, they really do have to look into more than just this. You know, this was just a one incident. Make sure that, hey, this is a guy that isn't really known for this. Like, you know, whatever happened, hey, look, he was out on leave. This is what he did. You know, we're going to give him the punishment, but we don't need to pursue it any further, and we don't need to string this out for any more seasons or kick him out of the NFL or anything. So we'll see where that goes.
Well, we're going to run this month's ad. We'll see you back in 2 and 2. On the boardwalk.
All right.
And here's our next clip.
These are prosperous middle-class people. They look like any European family that you would live next door to.
These are not refugees from Syria. These are Christians. They're white.
It's very emotional for me because I see European people with blue eyes and blonde hair.
Developing third world nation. This is Europe.
You know, we're so used to hearing of refugees from the Middle East or from elsewhere. These are refugees from Europe.
This isn't a place, with all due respect, you know, like Iraq or Afghanistan. This is a relatively civilized, relatively European.
These are prosperous middle-class people. They look like any European family that you would live next door to.
These are not refugees from Syria. These are Christians. They're
what?
No different.
European.
When Trump was in office and people kept saying that, oh no, Trump's not racist. He just has European values. These are the European values.
European women.
It's, oh no, there were some men in there talking about it too. It's the European values of, oh, it's okay. We'll take you as a refugee as long as you're white and Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are mothers. These are like black and brown people are mothers and fathers. Like what?
How about those that were in universities and all that over there that were not from the countries, that were black and brown people from other countries that were there for university, for schooling, that were having issues at borders, having issues getting out, or people taking them in.
They treat them like Bruno and Encanto. They don't talk about them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So apparently they have a look that is European. That sounds very, very Germany, from back in the day, about having a certain look. And that's the look that they want to invite you in. Oh, we'll take you in if you have a certain look.
And people forget that when the Nazi regime went down, a lot of Nazis did not stay in Germany. Mm-hmm. They dispersed all over the place. Mm-hmm. There were even places in the United States that they were hidden for years, and they changed their name. So people go, oh, it was just Germany that was racist. No, just Germany that was racist. And a lot of those races just migrated their way through the globe.
A whole lot in South America, too.
That's why a lot of people are getting some rude awakenings with their 23andMe's because their grandparents are like, oh no, we're Argentinian. Their parents are like, oh, my parents came from Argentina. My grandparents no, they did move from there, but they were never Argentinian.
Right. Yeah, and the paperwork is not original because there was a name change going on. So yeah, there's enough out there if you really want to do the work, people. There's ways to find out what is history the way it actually happened.
And you're gonna have to tackle a lot of y'all
grandparents. We're not looking at Hitler hiding out somewhere in South America. We're talking about real guy, not the little junior soldier man, little fighting man. We're talking about higher ups that actually made it out of the country, reestablished themselves, literally took over small towns in these South America or these other countries and set up camp. And they had people literally hide them, change the name, do everything. They'd get together, but they were protected. I mean, people just need to do a little history search.
If you look up American Bunt, like bunt cake, mm-hmm. See a lot of little organizations mm-hmm. that are the precursor to the Triple K organization, and they did a lot of hiding of Nazis, and they started to indoctrinate Nazi ideals into their little, their, as they called them, fraternal societies.
Exactly. Their Saturday and Sunday cookout meetings. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They also
we know what was discussed.
But... And we got another one. Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Of all the characters in American history, one of the most villainous, vile, sinister is Pat Robertson. Someone who purports to be a man of God, who is nothing but a bigot and a liar. But Pat Robertson came out in an unhinged statement talking about Vladimir Putin being moved by God to do what he's doing in Ukraine.
I think you can say, well, Putin's out of his mind. Yes, maybe so. But at the same time, he's being compelled by God. His goal was to move against Israel ultimately. And what Putin is doing by moving as he is to set up Ukraine as a staging ground for one of the armies.
Israel, the capital of Israel and the capital of Ukraine, Kyiv and Jerusalem, are 2,800 miles apart. He's acting as though they're right next to one another, that Ukraine is a staging area for battle against Israel.
Pat is part of that 700-year-old club.
When is the Crypt Keeper finally going to die?
The 700-year-old club. I mean,
and this man of God.
But think about this. This is also where the evangelicals identify. So
but
this
here's
ain't nothing to do with Christianity.
But this man of God, the show that he's hosted for so many decades, he stole from someone else. Not just the idea, not just the concept. The show was already a staple.
Oh, it was pro-Trump for for the last 4 years, and then before that, it was the
Yeah,
anti-Obama network.
He stole that whole show from Tammy Faye and her husband.
He should have let his son run it.
That's the evangelical way. Do as I say, not as I do. I'm gonna tell you what's a sin, but don't talk about my sin.
His son that runs that show at times is not. It tends to be less than his dad by a mile and a half, but who keeps letting him on there? Like, this has probably lost a boatload of viewers that are like, hey, look, they may have initially watched for a certain reason, but when you just get on there and just use that platform to just bash all reason of common sense, in the name of what you call, godliness, who's left? Like,
but here's the thing: you have to think with Pat Roberts, he has a cult-like following.
Yeah, seriously.
There are people who literally faint as if he was like Michael Jackson. Like, oh my God, I got to talk to Pat Roberts. Like, it's weird. It is weird.
But remember, he comes from that group of the Jerry Falwell group, and that's the same thing. Jerry Falwell was very much that cultish leader.
Because it's people in the circle have been afraid that they were afraid to speak up to Falwell. They're afraid to speak up to Roberts. And they just, and when you get to that level of perceived power and narcissistic ego, they get to this plane where they know they can say any and everything and weaponize their following any way that they want to. And evangelical Christians, there's no Christianity in their Christianity. It's all about me, look at me, I'm better than you. They are the least Christian. Because there is no greater hate than evangelical Christian love. And in these evangelical Christian sects and churches, there's so much competition, so much backbiting, so much. Well, Sister Tammy is having an affair. Ooh, and it's with Brother Bruce. Yeah, they having financial trouble. Couldn't be me. I guess God don't want to bless them. What?
We definitely know what they did to Tammy Faye. But it's money driven. I mean, it ain't nothing to do with what's on the cross. This is about green.
It's money driven, and it's extremely misogynistic. And that's what always gets me about women who become these tyrannical, fanatical evangelicals. Because I'm like, why? Especially white women. It's like, why do you always jump into spaces that are geared to bring you down? Just like female Trump supporters. I will never understand it. Nothing about Trump has zero respect for women. Women are to have sex with, take advantage of, and raise your children. He has said so many times.
And walk 5 paces behind him.
Right. He had no desire in raising his children. He was disgusted when even asked. He's like, no, that's a woman's job.
He's not a warm guy. But
and it's funny because as much as Trump craved the attention and just acknowledgement from his mother, and knew that his mother was just a piss poor mother, he kind of respected her as they got older because of her business savvy. But his views on women is
we see how he handles his kids. So yeah, I mean, sometimes that lack of warmth when you're growing up trickles down.
And speaking of Trump supporters,
but anyone that's seen The Eyes of Tammy Faye, see it.
Yeah, it's a doozy.
It's a doozy. And that movie is definitely not.
And every time when people keep talking about that women get pushed into situations because of daddy issues, I really wish y'all would stop saying that, because more women, their issues are not daddy issues, they're mommy issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
But speaking of Trump supporters, I don't even know how to let's just roll it.
What specific issues are you really concerned about right now?
I don't want them to digitize us.
You don't want them what?
To digitize us. I don't want to take medicine that'll hurt people.
What was the word you used though? I haven't heard that.
Digital. Digital.
Digitile? And what does that mean?
They're trying to make us robots. They're trying to make it where we have no choice in nothing, to where they can control us from what they put in our bodies.
And eventually we'll actually be robots?
According to what they're saying, not robots, but according to what they've already got a full man-made working female robot.
Will Smith's iRobot.
So are these powered by the 5G? It makes us magnetic.
Is this also going to raise the Kennedys out the dead? Is this going to reduce the lasers coming from space in the forests of California? Okay. Wow. Should I be surprised? No. Am I surprised what comes out of people's mouths? No.
And they get most of this stuff from the QAnon website.
And they're driving truckloads of what we need, goods that people need, unfortunately.
Yeah, and wasting gas when we have depleted. But I've ventured onto their side. And the stuff is so outlandish. I'm like, how have you convinced yourself that this is real? Because the stories on QAnon are so outlandish. The pictures are obviously Photoshopped, because it's not even good Photoshop.
Right.
And I'm just like, how are full-grown adults? Like, I could understand if QAnon picked up because of preteens and teenagers. But we're talking about grown adults with dependents, mortgages, 401ks. I'm like, this woman really believes.
But yeah,
we're going to be, she doesn't want to be digitized, not digitized.
You got school teachers out there that follow stuff that's loony.
Yeah, just like nurses who are in a science-based field that will believe somebody on QAnon regarding vaccines over their own education and what they see every day at work.
You got lawmakers in Washington that do.
Yeah. But the qualifications to become,
But my thing, it's kind of like how people have researched Nazi Germany and the Hitler regime for so long, the Third Reich, because of their blueprint for how you take over a nation and how you take away things and insert things to limit what they know and what they don't know, and how they can reach access to things that might influence them. So if you look at the Trump blueprint, you took away, one of the first things they did is do what? Take away media. They named off all the stations that you should ignore because it's those liberals. So you should only listen to so-and-so along with him and along with certain individuals. So they would name certain outlets of who you should follow. So when you start limiting your access to who you should listen to, yeah, you're going to start to involve some Looney Tunes. But if you were listening to others, we told you not to. Now you must be one of them. It's all a blueprint that a lot of countries use, a lot of authoritarians use. This is the means to get extreme loyalty to their cause. And it starts with media. It starts with where you get your information, because they want to funnel the information and be the only source that you're going to take in. Even as Looney Tune as it sounds to the outside world, that inner circle of people that are diehard committed to the cause, they are only going to follow that route of information that was told for them to follow. And they will go down swinging, claiming aliens are coming down or whatever it is that's being told to them. QAnon fed right into that.
Yeah.
So there's blueprints to why things are the way they are with why people are on the fringes of obscure nonsense to the normal world, to the common sense world. And no, it doesn't mean you have to be affiliated to a party. You're affiliated to common sense, affiliated to sanity. But that's where I get some of these Looney Tunes from is, yeah, for years they've been told. I mean, this isn't, like I said, this wasn't just something that, I mean, Trump was leading up to this before he took office. So obviously, the more he can work on from his whole presidency, where you were going to get your information from, these are the outlets. If you tell me you got your source from CNN or from so-and-so, you know, we know you what are you doing with that? You know, that's fake, that's false. That's, you're only supposed to listen to me or certain individuals, or that's how it starts. There's a blueprint to everything when it comes to manipulation and loyalty.
Most definitely. Well, tonight, figured I would find, well, I didn't find it. I asked my cousin to find it. A lighthearted video for us to discuss in. And she said we would enjoy it. I always get nervous when she says that, but here we go.
The baby in the sun from Teletubbies is 25 to 26 years old now. Why? Why? We pay rappers to brag about the money we give them. Yep, and that is one of the many reasons I don't listen to rap music. We fully expect thousands of people to die every day, but are shocked when it's someone we know. That kind of hit hard, not gonna lie. How fast you go up the stairs is a good indication of what mood you're in. Why is that like high-key facts though? Adults made the don't talk back to me rule because kids were too good at roasting them. Thank you, that is pure facts. Facts on facts. Buying Beats headphones is like buying a car that looks like a Ferrari but performs like a Focus. My gosh, Marvin, what do you got against Beats headphones? That was so much shade. Caramel is like if Honey had a hotter sister. I'm sorry, pardon me, what? You and your best friend won't be at each other's funeral. Oh, no, get out. I can't. No, I'm not thinking about that.
Alrighty.
My cousin may or may not need therapy. I'm not sure.
I thought we were going to end up talking about that rapper again from Missouri. Jeez.
Okay, first of all, the whole baby in the sun of the Teletubbies being like 25 or 26 at this point, I'm not gonna lie, I thought that baby would be older.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Many crickets.
Yes.
Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.
I really did think it was going to lead into the whole white rapper thing. But, well.
I told you I never know when I ask her for help. Maybe I need to get a real assistant because this is, she got problems.
Yeah. You're speechless. Moment of speechlessness. Oh. Goodness. I have no words.
Well, final words on the night, Chris.
Yes. Final words. since our show's taking place a day after Women's Day, I'd like to take this moment to thank all the hardworking ladies out there who are doing the best they can with what they got, whether they're trying to make ends meet or whether they're having great success raking in that money. Thank you for just keeping things together and making an impact to this world.
I don't really have any final thoughts on today. Minus let us hope that enough countries and enough companies get it together to put enough of a stronghold on Russia that this ends quickly. Because at this point, Russia wants the Ukraine, but Russia is destroying the Ukraine. Russia's economy is diminishing. So even if they were to take over the Ukraine, how are they going to afford to fix the Ukraine? This is the idiocracy of war. You end up destroying what it is that you want.
And remember, can't forget where Putin came from. He is well trained in the old Soviet Union. He is not going to backtrack something that he started. He will go down regardless what happens. This is not a guy that is going to feel pressures of the world and say, okay, guys, I give up. I'm going to stop now. He's not going to stop what he started. It's going to take something huge to stop his regime.
Yeah. And right now, all the videos that you see, the propaganda that he's putting up is Photoshop because he's hiding out in his mansion.
Mm-hmm.
But as always, thank you all for joining us. And each one teach one, each one reach one.
Be safe, everyone.